you don't want to make sure they don't use some of the starter stuff from the previous day.
Well, right, because starter culture, the way that it's grown, it's a bacteria. It comes from previous cheese productions. So what Tillamook used to do is they used to make their own starter from the previous day's production. Nowadays, the culture comes in these cans that are frozen. It's a culture that's made in a factory, and so I'm just making sure that those cultures are kosher. Yeah.
Yeah, you described going to the factory on the coast. Is
Yeah.
the kosher cheese all made on the coast?
Yes.
Not in Hermiston?
Boardman. They do have another factory in Boardman. The kosher cheese is all made at the Tillamook cheese factory on the coast. Yeah. So fine. So basically, that's the first thing I do is I check the equipment. The next thing I do is I check the cleanliness of the equipment. As Rabbi Dov mentioned, cheddar cheese in particular, other cheeses are made at higher temperatures, but cheddar cheese, all the cheese in the Tillamook cheese factory on the coast is made at temperatures at around 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that there's no transference of taste in the equipment. So generally speaking, according to kosher law, the only time that there's a transference of taste from a vessel into a mixture is through the application of heat at temperatures of what we call yad saledisbo, which typically is around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So because all of the various steps of the production process, which I'll get to, are made at temperatures below yad saledisbo, so there's no koshering of equipment that's necessary. That might not hold true for other types of cheeses, particularly some of your Italian cheeses, mozzarella and other cheeses are made at higher temperatures. But as far as for this, there's no koshering of equipment that goes on when I show up at the plant. What all I'm doing is they have normal, cleaning procedures, and all I'm doing is checking to make sure that there's no residue from the previous day's production. When I show up at 11 o'clock at night, the cheese from that previous day's production, the last bit of it is still coming out. So there's not much time between the end of the non-kosher production and the beginning of the kosher production, only by a couple of hours. And so I just make sure that all of the equipment is clean and ready to go. So the production process. The production process for making cheese is actually quite simple in a lot of ways. I mean, it's you have milk, you have starter, you have rennet, you have color. That's it. 4 ingredients. In terms of ingredients, it's not a very complicated product. So in the Tillamook factory here, these are all vats. These vats are vats of milk, pasteurized milk that comes from the over 300 farms that are part of the Tillamook cooperative. Most of those farmers know that they are, milking their cows for milk that is going to be used for cheese production, and the milk from that region is what gives Tillamook its unique flavor. And so, inside of these milk tanks, there's about 52,000 gallons of milk per tank, to which we add the whopping sum of by weight, 50 ounces of kosher microbial rennet. So 52,000 pounds of milk and a tiny little bit of rennet to make all of that cheese. So it's actually pretty impressive. So I'll take you through the production process. You can go to the next slide. So I'll take you through the production process a bit. So here's the rennet. So this right here, this little tank right here is the rennet tank. So basically what happens is I come up the stairs and I weigh out the rennet in here. Actually, if you go back one slide for a second. Can you go back one slide?
Ounces to
Yeah.
52,000 pounds.
Did I go the wrong way?
Yes, you did.
Sorry.
It's okay. Go back one second just to show you. So basically, this right here is on the floor of the facility, the rennet and the color, and there's a pipe that goes all the way up. And you can flip to the next page. There's a pipe that goes all the way up from that floor to a spigot that's like right about here. And you press a button, and the rennet comes out, and we weigh it on a scale to make sure that it's at the right weight. And then it gets poured into this tank. This little thing comes up, and I pour the rennet into that tank. So I'm not pouring the rennet directly into the milk vat. It gets poured into this little tank that has water in it. And then I walk over to a screen. So, big screens, a bunch of different buttons. There are a total of 8 vats in the Tillamook cheese factory. So each vat has its own controls. And so I walk up to the button of the vat that I'm about to set. And when it counts down, so they add the starter, and it counts down to the next step, which is the rennet step, and it says rennet add ready, and I press the button. And the pressing of the button sends the rennet from this small tank into the tank that it's designated for. And then I have to walk over to the milk vat and open it up to make sure that the rennet's going in. So right. So there I'm satisfying the both halakhic requirements of both the Ramah and the Shach. The Ramah says I have to be there and see the rennet added, right? And that's enough. The Shach says that no, you need a Maisa, you need a Maisa Yisrael, you need an action of a Jew to actually pour in the rennet. So I'm essentially doing both. I'm pushing the button, I'm pouring the rennet into the thing, I'm hitting the button, which is sending the rennet into the tank, and I'm opening the tank to see that the rennet that I added is actually going into the tank that it's designated for. And so that's basically in the Tillamook cheese factory. The medium cheddar is they're 37-minute sets. So what that means is that every 37 minutes I need to be up at the top to push in the rennet. So basically that means just in case I have to be up there really every half hour. Because I want to be up there. So that no mistakes happen. Because if let's just say that I didn't get there in time, and the non-Jewish worker said, "Oh, I'll go ahead and do it," I'm gonna have big problems. So there is a way to kind of get around it a little bit, but so essentially they all know that's why I'm there, and so I spend pretty much from we set the first vat of cheese at about 12:12 in the morning. And I'm setting cheese until about 10:30 in the morning when Rabbi simply comes and relieves me so that I can go to sleep. So this is just this is not actually in the Tillamook cheese factory, but this is just showing you the inside of a typical cheese vat where you can't just say add a rennet and just leave it. Right? It's not like you just add the rennet and come back 4 hours later and you have cheese. The stirring with these paddles going around and around is it's that process that separates the beginning process of separating the curds and the whey. Go to the next slide.
How big is that tank?
The vat it holds 52,000 pounds a month, 52,000 gallons a month.
That one looked a little small.
That was small. That was not from the Tillamook cheese factory. That's wanted to show you what it looks like inside. Well, it's basically the same idea. It has these paddles that go around, and from the time I set a vat of cheese with rennet before the cheese comes out, before the curds come out, is about 4 hours. So this is called the Cheddar Master, a very imposing and apropos name for this device. Essentially, what happens is that the cheese is inside the vat, and it's turning around and round and round and round and round to start the process of separating the curds and the whey, and then it gets pumped over through stainless steel tubing into the Cheddar Master. The Cheddar Master is basically what's going to happen. It's on two levels. The curds will be on top. All the whey is dripping down to the bottom, and as it goes down the belt. It's going at around 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and as it goes down the belt, it's going to separate the whey from the curd. And the whey actually, as Rabbi mentioned, has industrial purposes that were discovered, in the more recently. And Tillamook does take their whey, and they use some of it in their ice cream, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why their ice cream is not kosher, because they use non-kosher whey in their ice cream. But some of the kosher whey gets spray dried into powder. But we're not going to get too much into that. But basically, the whey all comes down on the bottom, and the curds all come out onto the top. We'll go to the next slide, and we'll see the inside of the Cheddar Master. So this is the Cheddar Master. This is the bottom part where the whey comes dripping out, and this is the curds. Where we had that picture before. And essentially, what cheese is curds. If you ever been to the Tillamook cheese factory, into the store there, they do sell a product called squeaky cheese. The squeaky cheese is really the curds that have not aged. It's just curds. It's been salted. It's basically cheese that hasn't gone through the aging process and hasn't been smushed together into blocks of cheese.
Do they have
So
kosher squeaky cheese?
it's interesting. They don't have one that's technically certified. When I was there the last time, they did make one. They have a smaller vat that I set because I was there, so I set it, and they were using it to make squeaky cheese. But it doesn't go out with a hechsher on it. But if you were going to the factory that day, and I was able, I could
let you know.
Yeah.
Give you the inside information.
Yeah. So that's basically, so at this point, you have curds, right? And then it goes through a salting process, and then we'll go to the next slide. So basically what happens is, it's kind of hard to see, but there are towers here. You see these towers here. What happens is the cheese goes through a salter, where you get the addition of Morton's kosher salt. What other kind of salt would you use for kosher cheese? And then what happens is it gets through vacuum pressure, gets sucked up into these towers, and the towers, the pressure that's in these towers basically forms your cheese. It smushes all the curds very tightly together, and they come out at the bottom of this tower. What this person's doing there is there's a plastic bag that goes around the chute, and the cheese comes out of the tower into the plastic bag. And we can go to the next slide. And so here you have the 40-pound blocks of cheese. So they come out of the bags, and the bags then get shrink wrapped here, and then they get sent. They get sent and they get boxed up. So it goes into a box, and then that box is inkjetted with the date and a specific lot code and the kosher symbol of Kollel kosher. So you might be asking yourself, well, at this point, right, the cheese is just going to be sent to be aged for technically Tillamook.
At that point, it's a 40-pound block of cheese, right?
At that point, it's a 40-pound block of curds that are smushed together, right? It's the aging process, which technically Tillamook cheese is aged at least 60 to 90 days. And it's the aging process which really, removes the any spaces in between the curds and formulates what becomes a one thick block of kosher cheese. We'll just real quickly, since we're up here anyway. So this other equipment here is part of the whey. These are whey tanks, and then these are called it's a fining process that removes the fine particles out of a separator. It removes the fine particles of cheese that's in the whey, because you don't want that cheese in the whey, because the whey's going to get sent to be made into whey, and so that's what these different machines are here.
So they sell their whey.
They sell their whey, yeah. And I can get into that a little bit, but so essentially you have so you might be asking yourself, well, why does so the cheese goes into a box, and that box is stamped with a kosher symbol. But that cheese is not leaving the factory, so why does it need a kosher symbol on it? So according to our sages, they delineated certain products that need to have what's called a siman on it in order to know that it's kosher. So the cheese is one of those items that requires a siman, it requires a kosher symbol. There are tons of products out on the supermarket shelves that have kosher symbols for marketing reasons and for other reasons, but as far as in a halacha, there are certain items that require to have a hechsher on it, and cheese is one of them. So that cheese gets stamped with I put the kosher symbol on it, and then gets sent into a refrigeration to be aged for 60 to 90 days. We can go to the next slide.
Do they sterilize all of the stainless steel equipment?
Yes.
In between the non-kosher and kosher?
They sterilize everything every night. They sterilize it. So basically, when I'm going there to check the cleanliness, I'm just checking that their normal system is adequate. Only one time in the 7.5, 8 years I've been doing this did I find a milk vat that had not been properly cleaned. So they're pretty on top of it, and I had actually checked it before their quality inspector had checked it. So if their QA person would have inspected it and would have saw what I saw, but they take swabs and bacterial swabs and things like that to make sure that there's no issues. Yeah.
But also based on what you're talking about right now, is that as long as the equipment is thoroughly cleaned out In this case, you're not going to need a koshering,
Right.
a full hot sterilization, because the cheese is only produced at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So if it's only produced at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, it's not a high enough temperature that halakhically taste would transfer from the cheese into the equipment. So as long as it would be cleaned out, even a cold clean,
Right.
very thoroughly, you wouldn't need to kosher.
Is it only the 95 degrees? Is that all is only this run of the?
No.
kosher cheese?
All of the cheeses that Tillamook are in that range. Where you get out of that range, typically your Italian cheeses, like mozzarella and other cheeses, are made at higher temperatures. And I don't know. I'm not a cheese maker. I'm a cheese watcher, but and a cheese eater. But I do port in the rennet, so I guess technically speaking, I am the cheese maker. But I don't know all the particulars of why certain cheeses are made at higher temperatures and others at lower temperatures.
It wasn't a kosher
But
decision.
no. The cheeses are just unique, and certain cheeses are made in just in different ways. So these are your 40-pound blocks of cheese that come out of those shoots. This is 3 months later, 3 to 6 months later. So this is where there's a full block of Tillamook cheese. So we'll talk a little bit about packaging. So right here, what you're seeing here is this is the beginning of the packaging line. Actually, what happens is, in order to make things easy for Tillamook, to coordinate supervision, I basically go out there every 3 months. Tillamook cheese ages technically 3 months before it's packaged. So when I go out there I get out there at 11:30 in the evening. From 11:30 in the evening to about 6:30 in the morning, I'm just setting vats of kosher cheese with rennet every 37 minutes. At about 6:30 in the morning, packaging comes in. So what they do is they pull the cheese that we made 3 months previously, and we package that because I'm there anyway. Obviously Tillamook has non-kosher medium cheddar, so it does require. Actually, I'm going out there at the end of the month just to do a packaging run. It does require a mashgiach to be on the premises for packaging, not necessarily because of the halachic requirements of Gavinus Yisrael, but just because simply they have. You couldn't distinguish a kosher block of medium cheddar from a non-kosher block of medium cheddar. So what I do, what happens is the boxes they come in pallets, and there's 60 boxes of 40-pound cheese per pallet. And so what I do is I'm constantly going back there and checking off the boxes, that the boxes are the right date and have the right kosher symbol, and that's how I monitor the inventory on that end. And then we'll go to the next slide. That cheese gets cut into what we know as our 8-ounce blocks of kosher medium cheddar. And so one of the things that we also do is that we want to make sure, right now, Tillamook, obviously, it's a professional company. They're not out there trying to pull one over on us. But in order to maintain the ideal environment for kosher, all of the labels in between runs, the labels are signed and sealed and kept under lock and key until the next production, and they're not allowed to open the labels unless we're there to open them. Line here, you have your 8-ounce blocks of kosher cheese that are put into boxes and go to your store. We can go to the next slide.
Do they still do 40 pound blocks of it?
And there's your kosher cheese. Actually, we cut that cheese up and you ate it today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do they still do the 40 pound blocks? I remember a long time ago they did.
They do sell 40-pound blocks to industrial clients that might have a need for such amounts. But as far as retail, they used to do a 5-pounder. That was discontinued. So at this point now, the only kosher cheese that Tillamook does is this 8-ounce
They do a
kosher
1
medium cheddar cheese.
Tuvia,
They don't do a
at
1 pound.
They should.
At one time, they did do a
Yes.
kosher jack cheese.
Yes, at
What
one time they
happened
did
to
a
that?
different flavor as
Right,
well.
yeah.
So one of the questions I always get is, well, why can't we do it in bigger quantities, and why can't they do a Colby or a
want
Monterey,
pepper jack. I
or
want pepper
which
jack.
by the way, those
The
are
answer
all
is they
those,
can.
those are all different varieties of cheddar cheese. But the reason why, it's marketing, and when I tell people, anytime someone asks me why something's not kosher or why is this Call them up and request it. It's all customer driven. They don't care what the rabbi has to say. I can talk to them until the cows come home, literally. And they'll say, "Great, Rabbi, that's great." I think Tillamook has decided, their medium cheddar is pretty much their biggest seller, and so they identified that as a cheese that they want to do kosher. But technically, any of them can be kosher, except for the vintage white, which uses a non-kosher.
How much
calf
of their
rennet.
run is of their production is kosher?
So we go out there once every 3 months for one 24-hour period. It's my understanding that in that 24-hour period, they make about 1 million pounds of cheese.
Seriously?
Yeah.
So it's about 1%.
But all the rest of the stuff is.
So all their other cheeses are not kosher. They except for the vintage white, they are all use kosher ingredients. All the cheeses that Tillamook makes, with the exception of the vintage white, uses the same kosher microbial rennet, the same kosher color, the same kosher starter, the same kosher milk. It's just that we, as Rabbi Dov has elucidated, that Chazal made a decree, a gezerah, that cheese has to be either supervised or, in the case of the painting of the shach, actual participation in the cheese making process, and that ultimately answers the question of why does cheese need to be kosher? Because there's a specific decree that Chazal made for a variety of reasons that are brought down in the Gemara, and that gezerah is, according to most opinions, is alive and well. It's called a lo plug, meaning even in a case where the reasons might not all apply, even in a case where where it's known that they maimin, that they make their cheese with with non-animal rennet sources, the gezerah still applies, and that is why cheese must be kosher.
Yay!
We can turn on the lights if anybody has any questions. Either for myself or for Rabbi Dov. I would be happy to answer any of those questions. I realize that we didn't get into whey specifically because it's really a class unto itself, and a lot